Welcome, IT changemakers, to the DEX Show with Tim Flower and Tom McGraw. Let's get into it.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Reality Bytes. And it is not only Reality Bytes, it is the DEX Show's show within a show within a show, which is where we get to talk to one of our fantastic colleagues and Nexthinkers, fellow Nexthinkers. And we have a wonderful one for you today. He is Christian Ponce. He's Senior Director for Technology Alliances and Field Marketing. Tim and I and some of the others on the call. We have Dina and Megan with us here today as well. We all get to work with Christian quite often, and we got to see a lot of one another across the still recent Experience Tour, which his team were absolutely instrumental in making such a huge success. So just behoves me to say, Christian, welcome to the show. Lovely to have you with us for the first time.
Yeah, Tom, thank you for having me, Tim. I appreciate the call. Glad to be here.
And we do what we tend to do, Christian, because, a couple of us, for our sins, are marketeers. We don't like to admit to it too often, but we do often and usually almost get colleagues from the technical side of the business and from sides of the business which aren't marketing and messaging per se. But you are an exception to that on the one hand, as you are a fellow marketeer, but your role is not. So your work history is not completely consumed with marketing, is it? You have quite a rich and diverse background. So I wonder if you could just begin by talking us through that a little bit and how you got to this role today.
Yeah, I would say, to answer the question easily, I got to this role because our fearless leader said, "Hey, can you do this?" I was voluntold into it, and it's been a success. But I think I got prepared into being successful by having that non-traditional, non-marketer's background. So as I've said, I'm a member of marketing, but I'm not of marketing. I grew up on the tech side, having started my career in IT audit at a Big Four accounting firm. Learned everything you want to know about Sarbanes-Oxley and controls, and talking to people who don't want to talk to you on a regular basis. Taking that and turning that into a career in project and program management, which was also a career of people who don't want to talk to you, but you have to come up with a schedule and help drive. And leveraging that to do things like IT security, product management, operations, working with GMs, and then eventually moving into innovation, which was, here's a box of toys, go build something that can help us make a business. And I did that for a number of years at where I was prior to coming to Nexthink. So Log Me In, helping run what we knew as Log Me In Labs, and that was taking aspects of marketing, taking aspects of the technical side of the world, taking access of product and building something new for a new market. All of that, I'd say, prepared me to come to this side of the house, which was tech alliances at first. Again, and this is how I got to know Tim. It was, how do I talk to a company about what they're doing, but what are we doing, and where can we come up with something new and interesting together to get people excited and get people to want to talk to us, right? Not about pipeline, but really about the potential for what we could do together. All of those things put me in a position that once I finally joined marketing officially as, head of field for the US, it was very much from the lens and experience of someone who had been on the opposite side. I lived in technology. I brought product. I used that product. I complained about it and said, you guys are full of nonsense. I read those cases and blood holes in it, and it drives my wife crazy. When I watch a commercial, I was like, wow, they just said a lot of stuff without saying anything. That's why I try not to do that on this side now.
So with your experience kind of on both sides of the divide there, Christian, I mean, you already mentioned, watching commercials with a cynical, or shall we say, expert eye. What are your main gleanings, as it were, from that dynamic between marketing on the one hand and customers on the other, when it comes specifically to technology and innovation in general?
Yeah, I would say it's, and I think this comes from my audit side of that experience as well. When you're an auditor, you learn how to speak like a lawyer, right? I'm going to answer the question that was asked of me, and I'm going to give you nothing more. When you come into marketing, there's a lot more that you give. There's some fluff, there's some exaggeration, there's some aspiration in those answers. And what I've found, definitely from my side in the technical world, but just technical people in general, is it's not about aspiration. It's like, well, what can you do right now? And when you are putting something out there, they're looking to read that. And as a result, when we developed EE this year, when we looked at the content and we looked at the speakers, when I think of things from the field, it's how do I put you in a position where you feel like this is legit? Like this is coming to me from peers who I respect, who I know are going to tell me an honest answer. And by the way, I understand what you need to do, but I still feel like you're giving me some meat there that I can run with.
So, Christian, the average IT person, and maybe even the average consumer in general, but let's keep it to IT, doesn't really, I don't think, understand the mechanics, the skill, the process, the back end of marketing when they're looking at consuming something, right? They're not looking at the TV commercial the same way that you do. Flip it around, though. What is an average IT marketer not quite understand about their audience that they're talking to?
Yeah, I would say marketers often forget, and we often forget that IT people are people first.
Mm-hmm.
They're understanding and dealing with and trying to manage a lot of expectations of their world. They're not just the guys who fix computers and by default understand everything technically. Yes, they have a more technical understanding of things, but they have expertise in some areas versus others. So you will get to one person and they're like, that sounds great, but that's not my space. I don't really know how that works. I can connect you. Or, yeah, I love this. I'm going to deep dive and get into those details. And it's remembering that those different people are going to expect different things in the messaging, in the content, and how it's positioned. We can't hit them with a one size fits all. It is not a monolith within IT.
So then on the IT consumer side of the coin, what advice would you give to an IT consumer of products or services as they navigate that world of vendor marketing? As my career has progressed, as the promotions and titles have advanced, I now exponentially get bombarded with more and more inbound on average. And I haven't counted in a month or two, but I'll get 26 average unsolicited emails every day, and they all want to reply. Even just tell me no, don't call me anymore. I shouldn't have to tell you. Just if I don't respond to you, stop calling me. But what would your advice be to an IT person that's under this constant barrage of vendor marketing?
So it's a very visceral response because I have that same experience now as well. And I try to be nice about it. I actually have a canned VDR response that I will send just to acknowledge that that's a person and they have a job to do. So I think those are the first things, right? That's a person and they have a job to do and they have metrics that they're trying to be successful for. So keep that in mind before you just ignore it. Sometimes the content in there's actually pretty good, or at least will spark your interest. So I say, what is it that you are looking for, IT person, against your specific metrics or goal for the year? And odds are there might be something in there that'll at least align with where you're trying to go. If not perfectly, at least be directionally correct. That might be worth a second look or a follow-up. The most effective or beneficial engagement points are going to be anywhere where a company is reaching out and saying, hey, we would love to talk to you or connect you with one of our existing customers or partners so you can have a frank conversation. Anything that they're giving you a chance to talk to somebody that's outside of marketing, don't miss that opportunity, because that person outside of marketing is going to give you a real answer. They aren't coached. They don't care. Right. They're going to say this is what it is. So that's what I would be looking for. That's what's going to stand out. That's what's going to stand out from an event perspective as well as something that's going to be the most worthwhile. If it's just a white paper or just a top 10, I almost take those as like BuzzFeed lists. That sounds cool. It might be fun to read, but I don't know if it's going to help me anyway. So thinking about that.
It's similar to a conversation we just had on the last podcast we recorded, and it was on the topic of AI. Don't fight it, embrace it, adopt it, right? Use the marketing material maybe as a way to stay up on what's happening in the technology marketplace. Even if you're not looking for something, use it as a way to educate yourself what's out there, and then you can just give a quick no, I'm not interested, but try to learn something from it.
Yeah, I actually heard that in a much more morbid way, and it made so much sense. It's very visceral. as someone who's worked in the industry for a long time, and you see things change from how we started and what were the expectations. I mean, we live in a post-COVID world with a heavy remote focus now, but Tim, I'm pretty sure you remember showing up to the office and sitting in that cubicle and having the expectation of being there, by the bell at 9 a.m. and don't dare leave before 5 before your
Yep.
boss does, whenever that was. It's not the world we live in now, and that's fine. But there's a group of people, and I see this in IT a lot, which, although we tend to be forward-facing from a technical standpoint, you're conservative in expectations, and it's like, oh, I don't, we had this, and I remember when I was using IRC, and now everybody wants interfaces, or they just want to talk to it. Why can't people just get hands-on keyboard? I have this special keyboard that sits in a funny configuration, and someone said to me, it's like, I don't know why people argue. It's going to go with what the kids want, because the kids are going to outlive us. So if they think that it's cool and it's what they're using and it's the most interesting, the best thing you could do is to what you said, Tim, be aware of it, understand it high level, be able to have a conversation. Yeah, you may not be the person using it, but at least it's not flying by you. So.
Cool.
So when you first came to Nexthink, what was the main thing that stood out to you about the technology and the community and how we present ourselves?
Hi, Dina. Sorry for not saying hello earlier, and Megan as well. What really stuck out for the community and the technology? I would say it was the first time in a long time where I was at a company where the technology was actually really interesting to me. I'd been at a number of companies, Vistaprint, that makes business cards and other printed products. It was really cool, but once you understand printing, was at Akamai, and that was the backbone of the internet. If anybody understands how CDN works, they invented it. There was a couple of guys that I worked with there that were at HP, Bell Labs, and at CERN, so guys whose names are on the patents for what we use. But again, it was just so far removed from my day-to-day. What really drew me here was the impact that it makes on an employee's perspective, right? And having been someone who's been frustrated with IT, who's been frustrated with my technology, I was like, wow, this is real. This will make a difference. This will make you much happier, which will keep you much more engaged. And as people ask me and how I pitch it, it's like, no matter what you do today, you likely use a computer to do it. And if that computer's not working, your coworkers and your boss could be amazing, but you're going to hate your job because the tech sucks, and that's how I engage. That was not the case here, right? The tech is great. They make it a point for it to be great. They provide a solution that helps you understand how to use that in the most effective, beneficial way possible. And that was impressive.
True. And what about the DEX practitioners specifically? How can Nexthink and should best support the community?
So the thing with the community for me is that the people who are really jumping onto DEX are seeing it as a way to really accelerate their careers. And it reminds me of people, if you rewind the clock and go maybe 20 years ago, and security was now the big thing. It was always previously a piece of networking or a piece of some other part of IT that everyone had a responsibility for. But a couple of guys and gals went out and said, no, I really love the Linux stuff. I used to write code. I'm going to really understand IT security. And they turned that into careers, and they really ran with it. And it was a leveler for whether you had a degree, you didn't have a degree, you just knew the tech, you went in deep. I'm seeing the same thing with DEX. The practitioners that are really jumping on, like what you see at Qualcomm, at Starbucks, at Johnson & Johnson, they are turning those into real careers with serious opportunities where they get to shape what the message is going to be for the future around DEX. And that's amazing, right? There's nothing better than getting it on the ground floor and being able to define what the pathways look like for everyone else.
Testify.
It's impressive.
It is. And in the last few years, there has been a lot of experience titles coming up and digital experience titles coming up. So it's not just some technology in place or a vision that people want to get to. It's about the perspective that has changed over the past few years, where people now in IT are considering experience, are really looking into the end user experience. It's not just a service, it's not just hardware that is being provided or application that is being provided, but the overall experience. And I think this has been evolving in the last few years, and the fact that now you're having specific jobs, like you mentioned, the security, cloud, all of that, that has been the change in the past 20 years. Now the new in thing is the experience topics and titles.
Yeah, I would agree. I think you see it even in CIO title changes, right? There was chief information officer, and just information was in essence a euphemism for IT. Um, that is I've seen that now change to CDIO, so it's chief digital information officer, because the platform is around our digital presence, not in terms of what we're doing from a marketing standpoint to drive demand. It's very much my employees use a plethora of tools and platforms to get their job done. And that may be hardware, that might be software, that might be some mix of the two. And I need to understand how all of those pieces and tools come together to allow them to deliver for us as a company. And the companies that are jumping in that are seeing even the talent profile change, right? The person who's filling that role is very, very often someone that is in IT, but not of IT, that have more of a business sense or did a different piece and understood what is the ultimate goal or outcome we're trying to go to, not just the technology that's going to help us get there. And again, I think this is why the DEX practitioner space is seeing that boom of people coming in and running with it and saying, yeah, I love this. I want to go and do it. Maybe I was the HR project manager, but I think DEX is, for the future, and I can leverage that as my way to go to that space, or the other way around.
Okay. Hey, Christian, Megan, I'm jumping in here. I think, all right, you've made some really interesting points in this whole conversation. Like, you started earlier talking to us about how our audience is not a monolith. And now here you are saying DEX practitioners, they could be coming from HR and now they work in IT because they're interested in experience, but they have that technical background. So if we're looking at that, and from your experience working on the technical side and now in field marketing, how do we successfully sell Nexthink when our audience can be so broad? Like, what's your magic silver bullet?
Yeah, I will. If I had a silver bullet, I would be Pedro, but I'm not. The way I think about it is one of the lessons I learned during my innovation days. In that space, we used to very much hammer people on, don't focus on the solution, focus on the problem. What is the problem that you have to solve? Because there's a million different ways to solve that. Right? You can do it this way, you can do it that way. It's irrelevant. It's what is the problem? And if I can explain that problem and help you identify that as that it's a migraine, it's a major issue for you, then all of a sudden when I come in with that Tylenol, right, that solution, it's going to click. When as a marketer, I would 100% use that same methodology, focus on the problem. When I talk about what is it that we're seeing with DEX and why we believe it's important. And so, what are the problems that we're actually able to solve with this? Where are the issues that companies have been facing and they tried to solve in the past by throwing money at it, by hiring more people, by moving to this location, by trying some other tangential platform. And we're seeing, that didn't solve it. That just exacerbated it, or it changed it, or it redirected it for a while. But here's when we're coming in to solve it. That puts me, the reader of this, or the engager of this content, in a position of being able to identify with, okay, yeah, I get that. I've been there. I understand what that is. And I see how you're talking about it. And yeah, maybe I can use this in my space.
That resonates, right? You always have to start first with what hurts, and then here's how I can help it hurt less, right? And I think that's actually probably part of the reason why our experience event is so successful. Obviously, there's many reasons why the experience event is such a success and why our customers come every year. But one reason is they get to watch other customers get up on stage and say, this was our pain that we had, and this is how we addressed it, and this is what we were able to achieve. And, in the 2 years I've been at Nexthink, I think going to experiences as a marketer, one of the coolest events I get to go to, because I really get to hear from our customers why Nexthink is so impactful for them, why DEX is so impactful for them. From your perspective, your team obviously plays a huge role in the success of the experience tour. Can you talk to us about why you think that our customers, like, why do they get involved, and what kind of impact can a customer have when they get involved with experience?
Why do they get involved in experience? It's an interesting question. I would say there are two things that resonated to me, especially this year being so hands-on with the show. One is that our community and our practitioners are very passionate about it because, again, as I alluded to before, it's a new space, and the people getting involved are those who are comfortable in ambiguity, ready to trailblaze and try something new. So when you tell those same people, hey, you want to get on the stage and talk about it, 9 times out of 10, they're like, yeah, I love talking about it. I love what this is. And I think we saw that in Starbucks and in PayPal, right? And how they're thinking about it, different phases in their own journeys, but same kind of issues resonating. The second, to me, is looking at that from the perspective of or as I positioned it, what kind of shine and reflection does this play for you? Everyone does something for some reason, and that reason is important to you, the individual. And when I think of reaching out and saying, hey, I would love for you to speak, the reason for me is I think you have a really great story. I think that story will resonate and will align with where our prospects or existing customers are, and we should share it. For you, that might be, I've always wanted to get on stage. I've always wanted to give a speech, or maybe I'm uncomfortable with this and this is a stretch for me. Or maybe it's going to help me in my job be seen as that leader in this space and have someone externally co-sign, because internally I'm doing this, but not everybody understands it yet, or I'm still trying to figure out the language to get more senior leadership on board. Here's a way for me to do that. And I think that's what EE provides, and that's what just kind of any speaking opportunity really gives you.
So it's been really cool to see, Christian, not only the evolution of the company and the product since being a customer way back in 2014, coming here in 2015, just hit 8 years at Nexthink. So I've seen a lot of change. The conference, like our product, started out being called Analytics. I think we had a little bit of a tougher time getting the end user compute people to come to an analytics show. Changing it up, I think, really helped. Tom and I have had the pleasure of co-hosting the show for a couple of years. This year we changed it up and we did a couple of podcasts from the stage. I want to know what you got out of it. We get a lot out of giving to the show and putting content out under your guidance and many others. What do you get out of the show in both the customer presentations, but more importantly, the behind the scenes conversations that you have with folks? Where do you think that, what kind of information are you seeing, and what do you think it means for 2024?
Yeah, so for us, the biggest thing we really saw out of 23, and as I said, I've been here for 2 years. I've been in one experience before, or two of them, one virtual, one in person in New York last year, and got a chance to run it this year. What we saw this year was the appetite for training on the platform and
Right.
this DEX technology is through the roof. I mean, we couldn't find more space to put more people in, and we went into it entirely with a try, test, and learn model. Like let's put something small out there. Let's see if people like it, and we'll go from there. We put it out there that we're going to do training. We sold out every seat within about a day and a half, and we kept augmenting and still sold out and had people banging on the doors. Maybe not literally, but actually literally in some of those rooms. So that to me really spoke to, wow, there's a real appetite for this. People are looking for where to get it, and that it isn't readily available. We have a market that we can capitalize on how we think about this show in the future. And as I think of 24, it says we don't move away from top quality content that's engaging and entertaining and fun, but we also provide the technical aspects of those solutions. I've always said, if I'm going to tell you a story about where we came from to where we are on the DEX platform, I would love a follow-up session that's, well, technically, how did you do that? What was the configuration? Who were the people? How did you set up your organization very hands-on with people who care about that. Maybe I don't want to present that on stage, but I am going to be able to present that in an off session where you can follow up. We can now do that. And I think this year gave us that opportunity to verify that that's the right way for us. Second, I think we give people in the space an opportunity to talk to each other.
Right.
As part of a show is the hallway conversation. Our goal is to create hallway conversations that can build off of the great content we're putting up on stage.
And that training, and just to point out, I think one of the key things about it being a great indicator for this coming year and beyond is that the training demand wasn't just for Nexthink, how do I run the product? It was, how do I operationalize? How do I run my team? How do I become a practitioner? It's not necessarily about technical training on the tool. It's about how do I move into this discipline, which is really cool to see. Yeah,
I saw that. I guess I'm really enjoying the role because a lot of parallels to me are what I experience in the innovation side. If you I keep telling us rewind, we did it with security, but rewinding on innovation, 5, even 10 years ago, everybody was talking about companies should have an innovation department and they should do cool stuff and they get to, really keep that engine flowing because moving a big company is hard. After having done that role, I actually think that innovation should be bred into product development teams so that they don't feel like they're separate. But there was something that I'd taken a course and it was a really interesting way. It said, we have to think beyond the champion. And usually what would happen with innovation is there was a champion at the top who said, I really care about this. And they'd go fund and build that team. And people would get hired and they'd go do it. And then that champion left the company or moved into a different role. And then all of a sudden those people were orphaned. And there's nothing easier to cut than an orphaned group that isn't easily alignable. With DEX, we are making sure, I think, with things like Accelerate, with our CSMs, with a whole supporting team, that we don't end up with lots of orphaned teams, but we have to think of DEX beyond the champion. Let's go out there and give you, what does an organization look like? What are roles in that organization look like? What are career progression paths for people coming in, where I can say you started as at the help desk, but here's how you moved into DEX and leverage that skill set. If you give people the opportunity to have a career on our platform and in our space, then they're going to continue to be successful. We're going to be stickier, and it will never get orphaned.
As a former customer, and actually having heard of this after I left, the team actually took it as a badge of honor that the proactive services team was shut down. They said, no more proactive services team. We're disbanding it because you're making everyone else look bad. So they pushed that proactive mantra through the whole organization and kind of flipped the script. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, and that's the right way to do it. We use this smaller group to test out this model, and once we've proven that it works, we're going to embed it into the groups. My thought, put innovation people together, test out a model that works that you can repeat, and then educate everyone else so that they're doing it and bleed them in.
Amazing. Last question for you, Christian. You've been here with us for a couple of years now and obviously making a huge impact. You're obviously very passionate about the technology and what it can do for customers. What about the community of Nexthinkers themselves? What about Nexthink as a workplace, as a culture? What are your kind of takeaways from being here for a couple of years? What's it like to be part of the organization?
Being a Nexthinker, it's an interesting. I think this is one of those questions that's loaded because it's dependent on where you're coming in and who you have. So I'm not going to sit here and say Nexthink is the most amazing place where you can have a phenomenal career no matter who you are. Everybody cares about you.
Well, we're going to have to cut it out.
That's a marketer's answer, right? But I'm gonna say from a real person's answer, what I find to be really good about Nexthink, and specifically as a person of color, this is the first time in my professional career that I've worked for people whose first language isn't English. Think in a world mindset. I've very often worked for companies that it's the U.S. and rest of world. That is not us. We are very much aware that the world has different locations in different places. And just on this call, we're calling in from a number of different continents. But so that bleeds through in how we position our product and how we do language translation and localization, how we think about the show and how we think about our customers. And all of that to me makes me prouder to be part of a company who tries to, at least maybe not on purpose, but in true practice, reflect the communities and both in which they're located, but also in whom they serve. So to me, that's a standout, and it's been great so far.
Beautifully put. And just a final plug, maybe a final plug of the year for the on-demand videos from Experience Everywhere. If you weren't able to come to any of the events or just not able to come to all of the events, you can hop over in the show notes to check out, watch, and consume all of that incredible content that was on the stage throughout October and November of this year. So just leaves me to say, Christian, lovely to have you on the show for the first time. I think we'll have to get you onto the DEX show itself also to delve into a couple of those topics in the future. But thanks so much for coming, man.
Thank you for having me. And if anybody wants to watch that replay, you can see me on stage at EE Boston with our friends from
Yes,
Starbucks.
indeed. Not just on stage, but in a pinny, as we say here.
Yeah, exactly. But no, this was great. Thank you for having me, and I hope you find it helpful.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Christian.
To make sure that you never miss an episode, subscribe to the show in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast player. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, make sure to leave a rating of the show. Just tap the number of stars you think the podcast deserves. If you'd like to learn more about how Nexthink can help you improve your digital employee experience, head over to nexthink.com. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time.